I knew with this child that, again, she wasn't able to nurse just based off of the knee. And this is where an evaluation has to come into play. But without a proper movement evaluation, right, you don't always get the solution to the problem. I'm working on the Super Baby Bootcamp. One of the days we'll be covering is feeding and going into social skills, your pre-talking and things that have to go on with your baby. This weekend, I had the pleasure of working with a 1-month-old, right? And I went to work with her. And the first thing I do is my newborn movement assessment. And when I got down to the left leg, the knee and the pelvis had issues crossing midline. So I asked her mother, I said, does she have problems nursing or latching on, especially to the right? And she looked at me. This is where people think I'm psychic, right? But the movements convey through a body, especially in a baby. And I knew because the knee couldn't rotate, just like getting out of a car for someone that's older, that the child would have difficulties going to the one side. So the child was in my arms, right? And I could tell because that left knee, and again, just didn't want to cross the midline. I knew with this child that, again, she wasn't able to nurse just based off of the knee. This is why movement lesson is so unique and special. Why? Because if a child's having problems latching onto the mother, especially to one side, we immediately look at where the issue is as the problem, right? And then if we change the problem, now we have a solution. Now, if you came to me, let's say, and you say my shoulder hurts, but because you fell and hit the ice and your shoulder hurts, you had blunt force trauma to that shoulder, then I would work on the shoulder. But if you said my shoulder hurt, but you didn't have any kind of trauma, I actually would probably go to your ankle. Why? Because the shoulder is stressing. It's the fulcrum point. Just like on a seesaw, that's the stress point. But that doesn't mean that's where the action would be, which would be on either side of the seesaw. Well, it's the same thing with feeding in a baby, right? So that's where a lot of people are going, and that's like, am my child tongue-tied and all of this sort of stuff, because they're looking for a localized problem, which might be the case, and this is where an evaluation has to come into play. But without a proper movement evaluation, right, you don't always get the solution to the problem. And in this child's case, there was a glitch somehow in the knee, maybe when the child was handled first when it was born, pulled out, but for whatever reason, right, it created where that knee was not available. And therefore, you know what I mean? Like, how is my knee supposed to go this way, an interior rotation, and now you want an exterior rotation? A baby, like I keep telling you, won't do anything that is difficult or that hurts them. So therefore, they won't nurse to that side, right? They don't plow through it. They don't muscle up. These are not situations that you should be having with your child, right? And that's what movement lesson is about. Really, it was a quick little movement fix, and she gave her back to mom, and she latched on just fine. That's another thing with babies. Babies, once they can suddenly move that way, they just do it, right? Whereas if I suddenly fixed your shoulder, you may be like, oh, well, maybe in this position, you're still looking for where it's not going to be okay. That's actually the funniest things when I work on adults, and they go, I look what I can do, and I'm like, yeah, I know, and they're amazed because they were chronic, they had this problem for a while. So one of the days in the Super Boot Camp, we'll be working on the feeding, nursing, bottle, and going into your speech, things in the mouth, those kind of things, as part of your boot camp for your super baby. Thanks, God.